The people, the headlines, the issues impacting you and your family. This week in Cincinnati on 9 on Your Side.
Good morning and welcome to This Week in Cincinnati. I'm Craig McKee. First today, changing the requirements for a driver's license in Ohio. A bill before lawmakers right now would tighten up the rules a little bit. Under House Bill 106, a person could still get a learner's permit at the age of 15 and a half, but the bill would double the period of time they must have that permit from 6 months up to a year. So the earliest a person could actually get a probationary license would be raised from 16 to 16 and a half years old. And the restrictions from driving at night would begin at 10 p.m. instead of midnight. Joining us now to talk a little bit more about this is Jenifer Moore with AAA. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Obviously, if any kids watch This Week in Cincinnati, we certainly appreciate it. But teenagers out there growing up, they have that goal. They want to get their license and they want to hit the road. Why is this an issue? Why can't the current conditions, current requirements stay? Why do you and the AAA specifically support this bill?
Well, what we're seeing here in Ohio is that teen driver related crashes with fatalities and injuries are rising up to a point where they're now unnecessarily high. And what we know is that 2/3 of the injuries and fatalities are other people on the road other than the teen driver. So it could be someone that's a passenger in the front or back seat, someone who is driving, as well as pedestrians on the road too. So this is a critical problem that we want to take steps now to address.
Could this be solved by just extending the number of hours that the kids have to take their driving school? My daughter had to go through driving school and X amount of hours and have the certification that she was good to go. Could extending just those hours solve this problem without changing the age limit?
Well, for us, it's not about age, it's about experience. So to your point, that is what we're talking about here with this bill. We want teens to get experience in all 4 seasons, for example. Right now, I can get my temps 16, 6 months later, I can pass the test and get my driver's license, and I don't drive in the winter weather where there's snow, ice, maybe thunderstorms that are happening. And so what we are urging is that changing the law so that teens get more experience behind the wheel, not only in the 4 seasons too, but also driving at night, because that is where we're seeing a lot of the increases with crash-related fatalities and injuries.
If we're looking at surrounding states, what other states, even across the country, have the similar, what's being proposed, have a similar plan in place?
Kansas passed something very similar a few years ago, and what they are starting to see is a decrease in teen-related drive crashes and fatalities because of this reason. Teens are getting more experience driving behind the wheel. Also, they're getting more experience driving at night. What we do know is that right now it's 10 p.m. Right now it's 12 a.m. in Ohio. But what we're seeing is that the later it gets at night, teens are getting in these crashes. One, it could be related to fatigue. You know, they're at school all day and then they go to work or after school activities, so they're getting later on the day till it's time to get home. They're tired behind the wheel. Or it could be that they're driving on a new stretch of the road where traffic patterns may have changed. We want to institute this bill to sort of help mediate those changes.
We know there are exceptions for school, religious events, work, and things of that nature. So really, couldn't teens or early drivers circumvent any new law passed by just saying, hey, this was a school function, or hey, this was for religious purposes, I just came from church, or what have you? Well,
what's supposed to happen is that you're supposed to have some type of a form or something to say I was here. You have to have something to back up where you were. You can't just circumvent that and say, oh, I was coming from work. Well, a police officer could say, okay, where do you work at? I want to follow up and check. And so what we really want to stress is that we need to make sure that teens are safe on the road. We need to make sure that all road users are safe as well.
Now, there are a number of sponsors on House Bill 106, obviously AAA, Akron Children's Hospital, American Academy of Pediatrics, and the list goes on, Nationwide Insurance, several different insurance companies, in fact. But this bill has gone through this process before.
Yes.
And it died.
Yes.
What makes you believe that this time around it can actually make it through, and why do you think it didn't pass in 2018?
We ran out of time, simply. That is what it literally happened. It got to the point where at the end of the General Assembly from the previous session ended with the election season and so forth, because there was not enough time for it to get through that last hurdle, get onto the Senate side and passage for the governor's signature. This time around, we are seeing widespread support again, but we're also having some internal conversations where we're getting even more support. Support is building for this, and I think it's because we are looking at the crashes that are happening every day. Every other day there may be a crash with a teen, and so now other people are recognizing that this is an issue that we can actually mediate and change, and whatever we can do to change it, we want to start now.
There are some families out there, though, that really kind of focus towards that moment when their teen is able to get their license, to help support the family, to help go get a job and work and have that mobility to take either siblings to schools or run errands and what have you, just because maybe mom and dad are working 2 jobs and it just becomes part of the lifestyle and how they survive as a family.
Right.
This could impact that.
Right. Well, what we want to stress with that point is to say we want to make sure your teen has the necessary experience behind the wheel, because if something happens to them when they are driving, they won't be here to take over those duties and help you with those duties. And so it's more important for us that the teen is experienced and has the necessary tools to be able to take grandma to the grocery store and pick up their little brother or sister from school, rather than not being here at all as a result of a fatality behind the wheel.
So what kind of support right now, since you ran out of time, which can happen you know, with pieces of legislation, but so who do you have on your side right now from a legislative standpoint, and do you believe this is a bipartisan push and you see this getting done? Well,
we have 2 strong. We have Gary Sherry and Rep. Sheehy. They are both in the House. They are very strong supporters of the bill. They have been champions of the bill, moving it along the process, meeting with us every other week just to make sure. We've reached out to the governor's office just to put this on his radar, and we feel that there's some movement that could be taken there too. So we're just continuing to build support as we go along.
All right, and of course, if anyone out there would like more information to take a deeper dive into some of the details of this bill, where should they go?
They can go to AAA.com.
Easy enough. All right, Jenifer Moore, thank you so much for spending some time with us on this Sunday morning on this issue. It's a bill we'll continue to follow.
Thank you.
Keep us updated.